What is going on, everybody? So today we are going to be covering the first video in a little mini series that I'm going to be trying to teach you guys that I think you should know. And this video is going to be about Army movement formations. It's kind of hard to explain exactly what this little series is going to be, but effectively I'm going to have a little disclaimer right here that I'm probably going to type up and throw on the screen, and I'm going to include it at the beginning of all of these videos. So pause that, read that, but basically in that, I'm not infantry, I'm not an Army instructor, all that stuff. I'm just trying to help you guys out. So with this information, it's the basics, right? So I'm not gonna be teaching you super advanced Army movement tactics, platoon formations. I'm not gonna be teaching you anything super duper advanced, but what I'm gonna be teaching you is some of the basics so that whenever you watch this video before you go to basic training or before you go to like basic camp for ROTC, you should definitely know this stuff for advanced camp. Like if you don't know this stuff for advanced camp, I feel really bad for you. But basically, it's just gonna be some very, very basic stuff. I said basic a lot because this is basic. I'm gonna be using my whiteboard a little bit in this first video, and I'm gonna be using it more kind of later on in some future videos. For the first Army movement formation video, I'm gonna be essentially covering one movement formation, but it's gonna be essentially from a team size up to a platoon size. All right, so for those of you out there who don't really know anything about how companies and platoons and stuff are structured, I'm gonna be just briefly mentioning that right here. So I'm not talking about companies or anything higher than that. So in a platoon, which usually when you're training in the Army, you're gonna be simulating an infantry platoon. So you go to basic training, basic camp, advanced camp, you're essentially just gonna be training like you're in an infantry platoon. And in a platoon, you're gonna have roughly about 40 people, give or take, right? And then in that platoon, you're gonna have 4 different squads. Squad 1, 2, 3, and 4. And given this situation, you're gonna have about 10 people in each squad. And then also you would have like roughly 5 people in each team. Alpha team and Bravo team. So that's how it's kind of built up. So you got your platoon made up of the squad, made up of teams, and then obviously just your individual person. Now, what formation am I gonna be covering? I'm essentially going to be going over a platoon column, or you can also kind of call that a squad column fire team wedge, which kind of you can build into the platoon column. And then at the very basic level, which I'm gonna be starting with, is just your normal, basic, simple, easy team wedge. You're gonna have the team wedge, which kind of builds up to the squad column fire team wedge. And then you have your platoon column, which is built up of different squad columns. You'll learn more on that here in a second, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not covering all the different formations. This is literally the one that you're gonna use 99% of the time, especially at the beginning of basic training and basic camp and all that stuff, because it's really the simplest one. But the factors that will dictate in the future, if you like decide to go infantry, you're gonna be using this stuff a whole lot more. So if you are going infantry, definitely be watching this video. But basically, the formation that you pick to move with, you're literally got all your people in your platoon, your squad, your team, you're just moving. So it's a movement formation, and which formation you choose is dependent upon the scenario, which we use METTC, which I'm not gonna talk about, but that's essentially mission dependent. So the situation can change. So which one is gonna give you the most control? So if I'm the squad leader, platoon leader, or team leader, which formation am I gonna pick that gives me the most control over my platoon, my element? And then which one is going to give me the most flexibility? So if anything were to happen out there while we're out there, which formation am I gonna pick? Is it have a lot of flexibility? Does it have a little bit of flexibility? And then also, what are the capabilities of that formation? So if you have essentially no heavy weapons, if you have no indirect fires, if you have all your heavy weapons like in the rear, it's just different formations, different capabilities. And then the last one is gonna be your security. So if you don't have any security, if you don't need a lot of security, maybe you got a formation that doesn't need a lot of security. So with all that being said, this formation is essentially kind of the best of all of those from my experience, from Army doctrinal experience, and that's why we're covering it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start writing on the whiteboard here. So essentially, what is it that makes up the infantry platoon? Like, who are the individuals that's going to make up this formation? I'm gonna go ahead and write that out. All right, so don't mind my handwriting, obviously, but basically I'm gonna kind of go up here. We got the platoon, which is made up of 4 squads. We got the squad, which is made up of 2 teams, right? So In a team, which we're gonna cover first, you got your team leader, you got your machine gunner, you got your grenadier, and you got your rifleman. So your machine gunner is essentially somebody with like a 249, or if they happen to in your training scenario, you have a 240 Bravo, which are your heavy weapons, which are gonna be your fully auto weapons. You have your grenadier, which is basically somebody with an M4 with a grenade launcher underneath it. Then you have your rifleman, which is just somebody who has an M4. And your team leader also is just equipped with their M4. They are just the team leader. So you got 2 of these, Alpha team, Bravo team. Then you got your squad, 2 teams, and you have a squad leader. Then you have your platoon, which is 4 squads, but you have also a platoon sergeant, a platoon leader, platoon sergeant, and then also, I'm gonna include this, but you're probably not gonna have this if you're going to base training. That's an RTO and a medic. Your RTO is essentially your radio guy. So these people are gonna be hanging out with the leadership of your platoon, and your RTO is with like the platoon leader, for example, so that the platoon can communicate with higher up, so that they know kind of what's going on with all the communication and stuff. But for the purposes of this video, I may or may not cover more of this. With that being said, I'm sure a lot of people are probably leaving comments being like, all right, here's the timestamp, the video starts here, and this is when we're actually gonna draw out the very complicated Team Wedge. And ta-da, here we go. This is it. Super duper complicated. Just so you guys know, the arrow that I'm using right here is just indicating the direction of travel. So if you're walking north in this case, this is going to be the structure of your team wedge, your fire team wedge. So you got your team leader in the front, you got your machine gunner on your left side, you got your grenadier on your right side, you have the rifleman also on the right side of the grenadier. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and mention this as far as spacing goes. So these people aren't gonna be literally like touching each other with their hands. That's not gonna be how close they are. How far apart you are is gonna be MET-TC dependent, which I'm just gonna say situationally dependent. So if you're walking across a desert, for some reason, if you're using this formation, you obviously don't need to be quite as close. But if you're going through a super dense jungle and you're happen to be using this formation, you might wanna be a little bit closer together, right? So, but the standard distance apart that you are going to be is 10 meters or about 30 feet. And just for the sake of this video, a little added bonus here. If you happen to be the team leader and you wanted to signal to your team, or even if you were the platoon leader, or if you were the squad leader and you wanted to signal that you wanted to get in a team wedge, a fire team wedge, squad column, fire team wedge, or platoon column, you could basically give them this signal. The other signal that you could give is essentially making like a V right here. So basically, see it on camera, you're basically arms pointed back in a V shape, right? That's kind of the shape you're making. All right, so I just erased the labels here just to make it a little more simple for what I'm going to explain here. So you may be asking yourself, why does it look like this? Why doesn't it look, let me fix this, like this? And the answer is, it could look like that. It really just depends on the situation. So if you have your machine gunner in this situation on your right-hand side as the team leader, or if you want to put them on the left side, it just depends on where you think contact is most likely. So if you're, I don't know, let's just say if you're out walking the street, right? This is not related to Army related. Let's say you're out walking the street and there's literally a concrete wall on your left side. Should you be looking at the wall for any danger? No, you shouldn't be looking at the wall for any danger, because danger isn't gonna be coming from there. It's gonna be coming from in front of you, to your right, or behind you. So you don't need any security necessarily on your left side, unless like someone's gonna jump off the building at you, then be paying attention for that. So basically, where you think contact is likely is gonna dictate, as the team leader, where you want to kind of structure your people here. So, I mean, you could theoretically, if you wanted to, just, the team leader should be in the front at all times. But theoretically, you could switch up all 3 of these guys, just depending on the situation. And then also, because I'm gearing this video towards like initial entry into the military, so you may not even have like a machine gunner, you're not gonna have a grenade launcher. You may have a weapon with one on it, but essentially, sometimes, you know, these could just all be people with M4s. You're the team leader, just tell 3 people to go here, here, and here, and call it a day. So now moving on to the most important formation that's going to make up this team wedge, fire team wedge, is the squad column fire team wedge. So what does that look like? And boom, there you have it, your squad column fire team wedge. The only thing I labeled here is the squad leader, And as we discussed earlier with the reasons why you do certain different formations, one of them being control, obviously with the squad leader being in the center right here, they have control over Alpha team and they have control over Bravo team. And also, I do want to mention that in this situation, you're going to have your Alpha team leader up in the front, you're going to have your Bravo team leader back in the rear. And the reason that literally this formation right here, that you need to understand, the reason it's so important, especially for initial entry training in the military, is because this is basically what you're going to be using for all of your different battle drills. So let's say you guys are walking along in the woods and all of a sudden you take contact from this direction over here, your northeast direction. Well, with this given formation, there's different things I'm going to cover in future videos where you have your Alpha team, you know, squad leaders right here, easily tells them, hey, Alpha team, you do this, which you're going to be getting online staying right here. And then squad leaders are going to tell Bravo team, hey, we are going to flank around and go take out the enemy. We're going to cover all that stuff in the future video. But basically, this is very, very important. It's very simple, probably, from what you're thinking, but that is the purpose of this video, so that you get this simple basic information so that whenever you go to basic training, or if you're going to basic camp for ROTC, you should be getting this information earlier than that. But basically, when you go to basic training, this isn't the first time you've seen it. So when you get thrown out into the woods doing an FTX, and maybe you're the platoon leader or you're the squad leader, and or actually you're not the platoon leader or you're not the squad leader, and then the platoon leader or the squad leader gets fired, and then all of a sudden you're selected for the platoon leader or squad leader, you know what's going on, right? So you're not super lost in the sauce. Another helpful tidbit here for this formation, basic training kind of related, more than likely they're probably just gonna be telling you, hey, we're just gonna go this way, or hey, just kind of loosely follow the road. So if there's like a road right here, you don't need me doing this on a road, but basically if there's a road right here, your drill sergeants may say, hey, just kind of, you know, handrail the road over there, or they may just say go this way. But in the event that they don't do that, or at basic camp, and you actually have a grid coordinate where you're supposed to go to that grid coordinate through the woods, you don't know where it's at, you just know where you're at, you know where the grid coordinate's at. The team leader in the front, your Alpha team leader, needs to be essentially the best one at laying nav, because you don't want to get lost. And it's probably going to happen if you don't do that. Hopefully they don't give you a location that's super far off, but in the event that you actually have to get a grid coordinate and navigate, move to a certain location, maybe you're doing a movement to contact, and they tell you to just walk towards this grid coordinate, just so that you're not literally going the opposite direction, make sure that that person's good at laying nav. And if you're wondering why in the world I just included that in this video, it's because it's important. And if you don't, then literally you could be going in the wrong direction at some point, which is probably gonna happen in your career, especially if you do ROTC. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about a platoon column. And if you're smart and you're tracking all this stuff, you can probably guess what it's gonna look like. So as I'm writing all this stuff on the whiteboard, I was thinking that this looks like crap. And it's probably just gonna be better for you guys if I throw up a picture. So basically, I'm not gonna do too much of this because it's really just a whole bunch of freaking dots on the board, and that's not gonna help you guys out. It's gonna be more helpful with less dots, where we can cover actual different battle drills that we're gonna talk about in the future. But essentially, like you saw in the squad column fire team Wedge, it's essentially the same thing repeated times 4, right? Also, the one variation that you may actually have, which is gonna occur in real life, right, is the weapons squad. So the weapons squad is essentially the squad which would probably be the second one, right? So you got your first squad, you got your second squad. It's probably gonna be your second squad. But your weapons squad is essentially the one that has all the heavy weapons, right? And that's pretty much it. So if you're trying to translate this to basic training, basic camp, advanced camp type stuff, it's the people that have the 240s or the 240 Bravos. I think in my situation, it was just the squad that had the 240 Bravos, because each squad had like one 249, and then the weapons squad had the 240 Bravo. A couple last things that I do want to mention, kind of reiterating, is that this is just one formation out of multiple different formations. Another one that you're going to be using a lot is just like a line, a file. That's super simple. There is a regulation on like literally a file of dots, like who goes where. There's a regulation on that, but also that's one isn't going to be as important to your situation if you are leaving to go to basic training, basic camp, whatever. But remember that this is a basic video for basic things. The next ones that we're going to actually be covering, like how you're actually moving. We're going to be probably talking about some bounding, and then eventually we're going to be getting into some of the actual battle drills where we're going to cover very basics on battle drills. So I'm going to be using the whiteboard a little bit more, also be using some pictures a little bit more because it's going to be complicated. So that is going to be it for this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. That would be awesome. If you want to check out some more of my videos, especially in this series, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That would be even better. If you haven't, go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Snapchat. That would be freaking amazing. Again, my account is private now because of all the scammers, so I got to approve you. But regardless, I hope you guys have an amazing freaking day, and I'll see y'all later.